had to come to this place where we know I'm not his enemy and he's not my enemy, that we're in this together. We're going after the same things.
We have to work it out now.
Mm-hmm. There's no backup plan.
There's no like, I'm going to walk away for a while and it won't matter anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come back and we'll figure this out. It's like, no, we have to really deal with this right now. We're all in on this. This isn't like a light, interesting side note.
Welcome back to Happiness in Progress. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy Award-winning journalist, a mom, wife, and you know what I like to say, just a person looking for more joy in the everyday. This podcast is brought to you by the Mail Tribune. You can find more podcasts at mailtribune.com. If you haven't heard, I have released the Hip Habits Workbook. It is 6 months of weekly habits. It includes everything from focusing on self-love to improving your relationships. It also includes things like meditation challenges as well as physical health challenges. You can find that in the show notes. Now I want to introduce today's guests. They are the owners of Outsider Coffee, CJ and Lindsay McPhail. In the past 9 years, they have written several books, launched an outreach called Fight Night, a retreat series called Strike, and now a unique coffee drive-thru experience called Outsider. They've been married for more than 20 years. They have 4 boys. They've had several careers, and they have learned a lot about picking themselves back up, taking risks, and really growing together. In this conversation, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what it's been like creating a business and several businesses together, how they work together, how they get through the hard stuff, how they deal when things are tough, how their relationship has become stronger. We're also going to talk about risk and what risk can do to you individually and also as a partnership, and what risk has to do with love. There's so much in this conversation. Let's get to it. Thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to just get right into the good stuff. Everyone says it's really scary, really maybe a little bit dangerous to get into business with your spouse. Tell me a little bit about how it has been working together with Outsider.
Well, yeah, for me, it's been a dream because I came from corporate America, long story short, 23 years. And we've always done well together. I mean, when we got engaged, we planned our entire wedding, just the two of us to a T, and then executed it, really well. It was fun. So I think we're fortunate to have always been able to work pretty well together that way.
Mm-hmm.
I am everything that Lindsay's not, and she's everything that I'm not. And I say that because I'm pretty good and she's pretty good. We're not perfect at staying in our own lanes. When a new opportunity comes up, we sort of just, without even talking about it, know Lindsay's going to take that one or I'm going to take that one. And then we sort of just run with it. Mm-hmm. And that's worked really well for us. But we've also been married now for over 20 years. And that also helps with a little experience.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't our first time in terms of being in a professional setting. This isn't our first rodeo. We worked with Sparrow Clubs together. And then we've done retreat and Fight Night stuff together. So it is, I think it's when we find we work best together when we stay with what we're good at, because we're such opposites. And of course there is crossover, and there is, I mean, the real nitty gritty is we get our feelings hurt, probably mostly me. Although you did last week, so that's not true. Okay. So we get our feelings hurt, but I think with business, how it's different in business than in marriage, because we all should be, partners in marriage too. But in business, you have to talk it out. There's no like, I got my feelings hurt, so now I'm going to be passive aggressive and whatever, because we have staff and we have things that have to get done. So what it has forced us to do, I think, is just to be really honest and communicate. And sometimes we do it well, and sometimes we absolutely do not. But it's definitely a learning experience. And we have grown so much to know stuff about ourselves and our limits and our capacity and our horrible communication or whatever. And it's shown us that we have to grow in those areas.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is different this time around, now that you've got that, 20 years of marriage behind you, compared to in the early days running things together?
Well, I think this time what's been most beneficial is we've gotten really clear on our mission. Mm-hmm. We're really clear. Like like our mission means so much to us. It's hard not to cry sometimes just saying it out loud. And that's a year and a half after being in business. And you should have seen me before we got in, because we wrote the mission out probably a year before we opened, like got it really succinct. And some people don't believe in doing that and some do. And I respect both sides. But I'm saying for us, it was a dramatic shift for us to get so clear in our mission that we knew what we were going to support with nonprofits, what we were not going to support, how we were going to hire our staff, what we hoped our customers would feel as they left our stand. I mean, we went into every detail imaginable with our mission, and it's really shifted things.
Yes, the mission has been so important for us because when we, it just keeps us going when we want to spiral or get distracted. But also, I think like in the early days with Sparrow Clubs, for me, the big difference, this isn't a huge difference for you, but I worked for you. I kind of was the secretary, I was the support, and now we support each other. And for me, this has been such a huge confidence builder because, oh, I am going to get emotional. Sorry, it's me. I cry about everything. But, you know, I talk about the fact that I am a community college dropout. And so the fact that I get to be, as a woman, a business owner, that feels good. Like a business owner of a successful business that's pouring into the community, that's, you know, having a good return. And for me to feel like a partner, and not just a support, not that there's anything wrong with being a support, but for me personally, in my confidence, I feel like it's really grown me, like, and matured me. Sorry, I made that all about me.
You guys mentioned the communication. What are some of where you can't be passive aggressive, and it's so easy to be passive aggressive within business or not in business? Within a relationship, passive aggressiveness is very easy to go to. What are some of your tips to start the communication, open it up even when it feels hard?
I think it has to be a balance of radical honesty with ourselves, but also honesty, like speaking the truth in love, which I struggle with. I'm really good at the radical honesty. The truth and love is hard. But choosing, because especially if you're a stuffer, choosing to say, instead of just like not addressing this, we're gonna talk about it. So when I go in and he's in a huff and I say, what's wrong? He doesn't say nothing. Or when he comes in and I bite his head off and he's like, whoa, what did I miss? I don't say nothing. Or maybe we do, but then, you know, within the next 5 minutes, we have to say, oh, wait, it's not nothing. Clearly I'm upset. This is what's wrong. And last week, I think 3 or 4 times we had instances where one of us got our feelings hurt because of the lack of communication, or because we thought the other one was thinking something they weren't, and we had to talk it out. And it's painful, and you have to like be mature enough to listen and hear hard things about yourself. And I think that's hard. That's the hard part of being in business, being in marriage, loving each other, being best friends, is you're face to face with your weaknesses almost on a daily basis. And you have to be loving enough to point that out to the other person. But also you have to love yourself enough that when that's pointed out to you, it doesn't crush you. That you can say, okay, that's not where my heart was, but I see where you could have thought that. So where do we go from here? And like I said, we by no means do this perfectly. And but I think our hearts are to learn and to grow. And when your heart in anything is to learn and grow, you get better. So
I think a difference for us that adds to your question this go around, because we have tried and built a lot of things, and about half of them have not worked and half of them have worked really well. Sparrow Clubs is a good example of something working well. Barnstormers is a good example, and Outsider. But there's plenty of examples. I started a corporate speaking job and career on my own, and it couldn't have failed worse. I mean, it redefined spectacular failure in terms of, you know, it actually working, because we started it during the Great recession, in 08, 09. But getting clear on our mission meant that we were so excited about it, Danielle, that we literally went all in on Outsider. And that's important. That's an important note, because before, it's like we've had 1 foot in sometimes and 1 foot out. I've always had the job, and Lindsay's tried lots of things that have worked really well. But if it didn't work well, it wasn't the end of the world. I mean, I still had a great job, and we could fall back on that. It wasn't like everything rested on this. And what a big difference in our marriage now and in the risks that we're taking is we finally went all in. The old proverb, all the chips on the table. Just pushed it all in, even foolishly so. I mean, good friends of ours were like, what were you guys thinking? I can't believe you guys did that financially. And I respect that. I just passionately disagree with them. But the reason that matters to your point and your question is we have to work it out now.
There's no backup plan.
There's no I'm going to walk away for a while and it won't matter anyway. I'll come back and we'll figure this out. It's like, no, we have to really deal with this right now. We're all in on this. This isn't like a light, interesting side note. This is our lives now. And it's made all the difference in the world for us.
That's true.
How has that strengthened you two?
It's made us more, it's made us want to risk more, because we've seen that CJ gave up his corporate career with all of the benefits and the insurance and the really good steady paycheck with no backup plan. And honestly, we're doing great now. But the first year, there were nights where we both cried, where we both didn't sleep, where we were like, what did we do? We know this is what we're supposed to be doing, but we had no clue it would be this hard. And so even just getting through, I swear to you, every day of this past January, I looked at him and I'm like, do you realize where we were this time last year? Because it was such a different story. And it was so hard. There were days where we're like, well, we're out of milk and bread and we can't go to the grocery store, and we have 4 kids. So fast forward, and to say it's a different story. There's still challenges right now, but we know together we made it through one of quite possibly the toughest times of our life, even though it was self-inflicted. And so what that does is it grows your capacity to say, okay, if we did that because we were so passionate about our mission and so passionate about what we're doing and how we're affecting our community, what else can we do? And so that desire and that passion for us to risk together has grown our hunger to risk more. But as we do that, I feel like as a couple, it just brings us even closer together.
Yeah, it's a good point. We do. I just don't. I want to be real careful how this sounds, because I don't mean it with any amount of pride at all. But there's just risks that would have been scary to me a few years ago that now seem really small. And that's not to put anybody down or any organization down that's wanting to take that step. It's just that we took such a big step, and because it had to work and we had to figure it out in our marriage and our relationship and with our employees and everything. Now, I mean, we're not ready to make any public announcements yet, but we're doing a lot more coming up in the next 18 months. There's a lot of things unfolding. And we just had to take that step and I'm really excited, because that means our mission's unfolding. That means more people, I believe, are going to be positively impacted. And I'm really excited about that. So Lindsay's right. That's how it's strengthened us, is it's given us far more capacity. And capacity is infinite, by the way. It's just, now we're going to take the next step. And when we go public with what we're about to do, then our capacity grows by that much more. And 18 months after that, it grows by that much more. So this isn't, we don't ever arrive, in my opinion. We just get to keep growing and keep and failing and succeeding and celebrating and crying and laughing. And that's the joy of life. And it's what we get to do.
I'm going to come back to risk in just a minute. But first, I want to ask for people who are going through hard times, because a lot of people now are where you guys were a year ago. We're in a pandemic. A lot of jobs have been lost. A lot of people are hurting. And it's really easy, when you're going over the budget with your spouse, to get in fights, and tensions are higher than normal. And it's hard to see eye to eye. what are some of those tangible ways that you can get through that together instead of let the friction kind of take you apart?
I think two huge things for us, and I'll speak for me, but are to remember where you've come from. Most likely in your life, even if this is the toughest time that you've ever gone through, like last year was for us, you've gone through something, you've gone through things before and you got through it. And when you got through it, you were stronger, you were wiser, you were better. But the point is you got through it. And so for us, when we're going through stuff, and it's not easy street right now, we just can buy groceries and we're really thankful, which leads to the other point is knowing what you've come from and being entirely thankful for where you are. My mom always said she would tell me like when I would get really anxious about things not working out, she's like, do you have a roof over your head today? Not worrying about whether we can make our rent or our house payment, but today, do you have a roof over your head? Yes. Do you have clothes on, for your kids and for yourself today? Yes, we do. Do you have food to eat today? Yes, we do. And, even last year, we knew we live on the same property with my parents and my sister. And I knew that if all else failed, we could go to their house. But the point was that we had to remember where we've come from because we've been through some really extremely excruciating stuff. And then to look around and say, we're thankful for the simple things that are in our life. We're thankful for our love for each other. We're thankful for our 4 amazing boys. Even if it's not where we want to be, even if it's really hard, we have the necessities today, not worrying about tomorrow. We have them today and we're thankful today.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree with that. That pretty much sums up how I would have said it. I would just say to those people, it's okay to feel how you feel. There's no judgment, and you shouldn't apologize for how you feel. But if you love yourself, and not enough people do, but if you or you love your family, you don't have permission to stay there. You can't. By definition, because you just said you love other people and you have other things you want to accomplish, you don't get to stay there. So this is where Lindsay and I exercise hard love, even with our employees. It's okay. It's a hard day. It's a hard week. Okay. A hard month, maybe. Sure. But we're not going to live in this. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. We've got to rise above this. So what's exciting right now? What's working right now? Like Lindsay said, what do you have? They're simple questions we ask our team all the time to help them rise above. And as we say in our mission, to wake people up to their greatness. Had to keep saying what is working. Well, we did it. We went all in when people said we shouldn't and couldn't. We actually did that. That's exciting. Like I'm so proud of that. I can't even tell you. In that with pride or arrogance. I'm just proud of us. I'm proud that we went against the grain and we pushed it all on the table and said, okay, it's got to work now. And so that's what I'd say to those people that are a year back or whatever time frame you used is it's okay to feel down or sad, but it's not okay to stay there. And the way that you rise above that is by asking yourself some very simple questions. You don't need another app. You don't need a website. You don't even need a podcast, all due respect. You just need to ask yourself a couple of questions. And then all those resources like your podcast, which I was watching more of this morning online on your website, are so encouraging. All those things start to fill in the gaps. But if you use those things to fill in the gaps and you haven't done the work yourself, your own heart work, then you're really delaying a lot of pain. So what's working? What's not working? Where do you want to be? What are you excited about? Those are simple questions that not enough people ask or answer.
Those are great questions. And I think too, when you're looking to other people to put you on your road, you'll get so distracted from the answers to those questions because you've never asked them, and you'll get distracted by other people's purposes and other people's journeys and what other people say. I love starting with those questions. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Lindsay, you talked about earlier when you have these hard conversations, you guys come together and you have to sometimes hear things about your weaknesses that you don't really want to hear. Nobody wants to hear about their weaknesses. How can you kind of soften your heart in that moment to realize it's not an attack on your personal self?
I am not great at doing that in that moment.
Yeah.
So I'm a slow burn. But what I would say, the key to doing that is to know that the person in front of me, CJ, is not telling me these things to tear me down or because he doesn't love me. It's just the opposite. Sorry, I'm so emotional about this, but it's super fresh. It's that he loves me and he knows who I am, and he is speaking these things to me in a place of love because he wants to see me grow. He wants to see our relationship grow. And the same on the other side. We have had to come to this place where we know I'm not his enemy and he's not my enemy, that we're in this together. We're going after the same things. And it's so flippin' hard to hear the crappy stuff about who you are in real life. Like, we can put our personas out there and we can say this is our mission, but if at home my actions or CJ's actions don't match up with that mission, then it means nothing. And so we have to be in a place where we're open to hearing the hard stuff about ourselves if we actually want to be true to the mission that we say we believe. Mm-hmm. And I think all of that together helps soak it in. I'm fiery. So when he comes to me initially, I'm like, and I'm not just like, oh, wow, good point, babe. You're right. That was horrible.
It's never.
I can, after 20 years and after lots of counseling for me, I know even if it takes me a day, it usually doesn't take me that long. I can process and say, oh, how I came across was not how I intended to come across, or, I reacted to what I thought he thought instead of actually hearing him out, or whatever. So once you process that, and once you can look, we say, how many words it is, but the most powerful words that we can say in our marriage is, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me, if they're said genuinely. And so when we can receive that, when we can say those words, then it truly, you come back together stronger. Like the other person isn't like, yeah, you really are a piece of crap. It's like, hey, I love you and I forgive you and we're going to be better.
I love that you mentioned, before you go, CJ, I love that you mentioned that it's okay for it to take a little bit of time before you're cool with dealing with what was just said to you. I love that, because I think in the heat of the moment, it can be hard.
It's a good point, and it does take time. I think people are being deceiving if they say it doesn't. For anybody, some are better at it, but it still takes time. It's never easy.
Well, we're fiery people, though. There's probably calm people,
but we're also in a vulnerable place, and we're choosing to keep ourselves in a vulnerable place, which is something you've really got to manage really, really well. But what I was going to say is, one of the ways that we manage that is, and I'm really proud of this, and we haven't actually talked about this much lately, so I'm gonna say it here. That's what we did.
It's gonna be a surprise, Lindsay.
We go. But Lindsay and I have become really good, and if I'm going to brag, I'll brag about our marriage in this way. We've become really good about celebrating things. Yeah, we are really good about celebrating a little progress we see in our oldest son with autism. We didn't used to be. I think we used to notice it. And we might mention it at some point when the chaos went away, which is never. But now we're intentional. We date weekly. And our dates now with COVID look mostly like driving through somewhere and going on a long drive, getting food somewhere and going on a long drive in the car. We seem to conquer the world in the car. We can take on the world, but those drives are typically, oh my gosh, like Lindsay's saying, can you believe that we're up 80% today over the same day last year, which is a literal example of last week. Yeah. Or can you believe that this happened? Or isn't it cool that this has happened? I mean, so we're in the midst of a lot of chaos and national struggle and challenge and all this, which is legitimate. We're trying to rise above it and just say, let's celebrate this. And I think it's really getting us through an awful lot. Yeah. So the only way you can celebrate things, as you know, Danielle, is to look for things to celebrate. So you have to develop this art and practice of looking for the things that are working, which is not easy to do. Ironically, interestingly, it's really hard to do, actually. I think we've become good at looking for what's good. And that has really shaping us. And I think it rubs off on our staff. I hope it rubs off on our sons. And it brings a lot of joy in the midst of a interesting time.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, babe.
And I like that you called it a practice. And the reason that it's hard and you have to come back to it over and over again is because that's just what it is. It's just a practice. You're just practicing.
Yeah.
How do risk and
Good answer.
love go hand in hand? Risk and love.
Well, I think that risk is the core of love. And I've said this for years. I don't, when you're in high school or junior high, whatever the case is, and you're calling a girl, in my case, you're trying to get up the courage, you pick up the phone and you hang it up, you pick up the phone, you hang it up, you pick up the phone, you hang it up, right? It was, you had to take that risk first before that love could develop. And I wish more people saw it that way, because I think it would encourage more people to take the little small steps, to take those little risks. So to me, risk is the core of love, and that's how they're married. And the opposite is true too. And Lindsay and I argue this all the time in a fun way. Love is the core of risk, because so much you're going to probably take a risk to do it. I get both sides of it,
Or
but
if you
to me,
love
that's how they're
yourself
interacted.
I think if you love yourself enough, or if the person that you're partnering with, like, you have this foundation of love, like, risk is going to happen. It's not like, hey, maybe we should do something now. It's like when you are secure in who you are, when you have, in some people, our situation is unique to us. So I say a partner or whatever, but you at least have to love yourself. And what comes from that is risk, because you cannot love yourself and stay just comfortable. I mean, I guess you can, but for me, maybe it's just our personality. Like, the more that we love ourselves, the more that we're confident in who we are and our relationship together, it's like these risks present themselves. And we're like, of course, yes. And they're usually just these little risks, but they're things that you wouldn't even consider if you didn't love who you were. If you didn't have this like healthy connection between us, we wouldn't probably even see the risks, because we would be so focused on surviving, staying comfortable, staying safe, like keeping up with the Joneses. But for us, that's not really one of our priorities, because when you're confident in who you are, like, you see things differently and you notice opportunities, and the big and the small. I think sometimes when we talk about risk, we talk about, or we think it's like this big thing, but the truth is we see tiny little things every day that we get to say, hey, let's try this. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but it's a risk. And I don't think we would do even a inkling of the things that we do if it wasn't for our love for ourselves, not in a selfish way, but in a wholeness way, and our love for each other.
Yes.
I like looking at that both ways. Love is the core of risk, and risk is the core of love. You guys have a love challenge going on this month through Outsider and your Outsider group and online. And I think there's a prize that people can win too if they're involved. 28 coffees, right?
28 coffees. Yep.
So each day there's a love challenge. I just want to ask you why you think it's important that people be intentional about love, whether it's within a relationship, with their friends, with their children, or with total strangers. Why is that intentionality important?
So our mission is to wake people up to their greatness so that they can love themselves and impact their communities. And I feel like this love challenge is just putting feet to our mission. And we've kind of set it up so it's loving our community, it's loving our family, but it's also loving ourselves. So it's like all mixed in there. And the point is, we can say, oh, I love my community all day long. We can say, oh, I love my family all day long. We can even, make it look like we love ourselves. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't lead to a positive impact on the people around us or on our community, then it's just words. And so we love our mission. It's driven us to do so much, but it's only meaningful if it extends to the people we're serving. And so we're just trying to say, hey, obviously you're here because you love something about what we've love something about our mission. So let's take the next step. And the next step are these tiny challenges. I mean, literally today is close your eyes, breathe, and say thank you. It's a self-love thing. It's a self-care day. It's so easy. And people just have to use the hashtag outsider28, and we'll choose one winner, like post about it, use that hashtag, and we'll choose one winner to win 28 free coffees at the end of the month. So just a way to really help people move into action, to take our mission and put it into action.
I love it. I will post all the links for people to get involved. The last question I want to ask, Lindsay, you've answered this before when you were on the podcast, but it's the question I ask everyone, which is how to find joy in the good, the bad, and the in-between.
That's your specialty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you look for what you can celebrate, and you celebrate the heck out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. It's just gratitude and being thankful no matter where you are. Whether you're on the highest of high or the lowest of lows. One of my favorite quotes is, if thank you was the only prayer I ever prayed, it would be enough. And I think the gratitude, no matter where we are, opens our eyes to the beauty around us and to the joy around us. So
I love it. Both wonderful. Thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Yes. For all you're doing. Good job.
Yeah, you're amazing. And we love you so much.
I hope you loved listening to CJ and Lindsay. I think there's so much that we can take from this conversation. I am linking all of their information in the show notes. Make sure to go be part of that love challenge this month and try to win those 28 free coffees. I want to thank you for being here on Happiness and Progress.